So for guitar number 56, which has Ziricote all the way around the back and sides, I'm going to also be doing a Ziricote fretboard. And so I'm going to cut it, put that aside for the moment. I'm going to cut it from this large piece of Ziricote. I got it from Hardwoods in the actual hardwood section, not in the tonewoods section, and it was more or less just an off-cut piece. So I got a good deal on it. You know, the grain and everything on it was good for my purposes. It's a good piece as long as I can cut around these marks in the top, which something having to do with whatever their process is down there. There are these probing marks to check the moisture content of the wood when they're drying it out. I'm going to have to be careful about where I pull this fretboard from, but as you can see, lengthwise I have plenty of real estate. So for this first cut, which is really like a resaw cut, I'm using the resaw bar on my fence, which will give me the vertical stability of having the fence, but with the lateral freedom to compensate for bandsaw drift as I progress through the length of this fairly long piece. So on a really long piece like this, a resaw bar becomes essential. And by the way, I would normally have some sort of dust collection hooked up to my bandsaw right now. However, my dust collection is currently out of commission, and in the meantime, the show must go on. I gotta keep producing stuff, so I'm just working without it at the moment, and that's fine. Just wanted to mention that to head off the inevitable comment about how dusty it is and how bad that is for you and everything, which is true. And by the way, that cloudiness you see is dust from the blade. It is not smoke from overheating. So the first thing I did was cut this down to a more normal or close to the thickness I'll be using for the fretboard. And I did that first just because I wanted to actually save this second piece here. I think I'm going to use it up in the student lodging area. I have an idea for something up there. So we'll save that piece. Now, one mistake I made is I actually originally intended to cut the bridge out of this section too, but now I suddenly realized right after I cut this that I kind of screwed myself because I forgot that I was going to do that, and now this material is not thick enough to cut a bridge from. No big deal. That just means I'm going to have to get more Ziricote, and that just means that I didn't, use this resource as well as I could have because I wasn't thinking clearly. Anyway, it is what it is. And now I'm using my templates to mark exactly where I want this fretboard and the head plate to be. Because ideally I want that head plate to come from the area just on top of where the nut will be, where that fretboard ends, just for the continuity of the grain and figure from the fretboard onto the head plate. For making visible marks on darker woods like the Ziricote or like rosewood or ebony or anything like that, walnut, I like to use gel pens because, one, the pen doesn't actually indent into the wood. It actually just leaves a layer of that gel ink right on top of the surface. And when you use either a white, a gold, or a silver color, or any number of bright colors, it really stands out, whereas pencil does not. And so using those pencil marks as a guide, I cut down my blank into the two separate pieces that I needed, which were the headplate piece and the fretboard section. And now I'm planing the fretboard down to a good starting thickness. And then I plane the headplate section down separately to 1/8 of an inch. Alright, so now from that original larger piece, I now have where my fretboard blank is going to be drawn from, and a thinner piece that I pulled from the top for the head plate, so that the theme of this sort of landscape effect that you get from the Ziricote is going to carry directly and seamlessly onto the head plate. So that'll be cool. And I should have gotten the bridge from this. I screwed that up, but hopefully I'll be able to find a separate piece on my next run for wood that will match seamlessly with this as well. And so next I would be jointing this edge right here, or just making sure that this edge is nice and flat so that I can use it as a reference to butt up against the fence as I cut the fret slots into here. But since I already jointed the larger billet, I jointed that, and just checking it with a straight edge, it still looks great. So I don't need to run this over the jointer. I can go straight to fret slotting. And now with the fret slots precisely located, I'm remarking my fretboard taper and shape so that I can now cut it to final shape. To shape the curves at the end of the fretboard tongue, I'm using a simple tool held in the drill press that's called the Robo Sander, which is really just a rubber sanding sleeve with a flush trim bearing at either the top or the bottom. So it works effectively like a flush trim router bit, except it's an abrasive tool rather than a cutting tool, so it's safer even though it's a little bit slower. And on hard, dense woods and brittle woods like the Ziricote, the abrasive cutting tool is definitely preferred over something that can splinter out or cause the workpiece to be thrown. Okay, let's remove this template and get a first look at truly what this fretboard is going to look like. Okay, beautiful. So that's what that's going to be like. Of course, it doesn't have the radius on it yet, and that's going to make it look even cooler. But the radius will have to wait until this is installed on the neck and body. And let's check this out with the body. Ooh, and look at that. That is sweet. I like that. I think that's going to look really sharp in the end. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video every Friday. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.